destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis.
Oh my.
Выходите с поднятыми руками и без фокусов, или мы туда вам еще одну закинем ТМ-ку.
Wars are not sold as wars anymore. They're sold as interventions. Coups are sold as democracy. Economic strangulation is sold as diplomacy. And foreign control is sold as security. Today, we are examining the confrontation involving Israel and Iran, not through slogans or headlines, but through political history. Because this confrontation does not exist in isolation, it follows a governing model that has already been deployed, refined, and tested elsewhere. That place was Africa. This is not speculation. This is documented political practice. The conflict with Iran is not fundamentally about nuclear weapons, borders, or defense systems. It is about power alignment. Israel's strategic doctrine identifies Iran as a structural threat, not because of a single policy decision, but because Iran operates outside the Western-led security and economic order. In international relations, alignment matters more than rhetoric. When a state refuses military integration, economic dependency, or political subordination, pressure escalates. First diplomatically, then economically, then covertly, and if those fail, militarily. This is not emotional decision-making, it is procedural. In political science, regime change is not a slogan, it is a strategy. It refers to the intentional effort by external actors to weaken, replace, or restructure a sovereign government in order to produce a more compliant political outcome. This is rarely done through a single action. It is done through layered pressure. Sanctions that collapse civilian economies, diplomatic isolation that delegitimizes leadership, covert operations that fragment institutions, narrative warfare that reframes intervention as liberation. And when these measures fail, force is justified as a last resort.
تسلیحات بازدارنده
Intercept window closed.
Impact!
We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour, so we're ahead of schedule there by a lot.
This framework is not theoretical. It is historically repeatable. If you want proof that this model produces instability rather than democracy, look at Africa. Following independence, many African nations pursued economic sovereignty and political non-alignment. One of the clearest cases is Patrice Lumumba, the first Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
La République du Congo a été proclamée. Et notre pays est maintenant entre les mains de ses propres enfants. Nous allons établir ensemble la justice sociale et assurer que les terres de notre patrie profitent véritablement à ses enfants.
Lumumba was democratically elected. He was not overthrown for authoritarianism. He was removed because he refused external control over his country's resources and political direction. Foreign-backed intervention followed. What replaced him was not stability. It was decades of dictatorship, proxy conflict, and economic extraction. The Congo was not an exception. Across Africa, leaders were removed when they challenged foreign mining interests, military basing, or economic dependency. The justification was always identical: stability, democracy, security, but the outcomes followed a pattern: weakened institutions, permanent political crisis, external dependency disguised as aid. This is not hindsight bias. It is comparative analysis. When the same inputs produce the same outputs across regions, the conclusion is unavoidable. The first counterargument is familiar: that regime change promotes democracy. This claim appears frequently in policy statements, but rarely survives empirical testing. Political scientist John Mearsheimer has repeatedly argued that great powers do not act to spread democracy. They act to preserve dominance. And the data supports that. Studies published in International Security and Journal of Peace Research show externally imposed regime change is statistically correlated with civil war, institutional collapse, and long-term instability. Democracy imposed from the outside does not consolidate. It fragments. The second argument claims sanctions are humane, a non-violent alternative. But sanctions are not neutral. Economist Jeffrey Sachs has documented how comprehensive sanctions overwhelmingly harm civilians, not political elites. Healthcare systems collapse first. Food prices spike second. Political radicalization follows. This is not accidental. It is structural. When civilian suffering becomes leverage, sanctions function as slow-motion warfare.
The state of Israel set out to, with our great friends, the United States of America,
The third argument insists Iran is different, that comparisons to Africa are invalid. But comparative politics does not require identical cases. It requires consistent mechanisms. Historian Noam Chomsky has shown that intervention models adapt to local conditions, while preserving their core logic. Different region, different culture, same pressure architecture. Sanctions, delegitimization.
They're going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated.
Hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military.
Elite fragmentation, external leverage. The geography changes. The method does not. The final argument appeals to fear. That preemptive action is necessary for security. But international law is explicit. United Nations Charter restricts the use of force to self-defense or Security Council authorization. Preventive regime change does not qualify. When security becomes a justification without limits, it becomes indistinguishable from domination.
This is an extremely sexist crowd we have right here. It's against Hillary Clinton.
Fire. We're on target. Fire.
These arguments fail for the same reason. They confuse intention with outcome. Regime change is justified in moral language, but executed through power. And power does not democratize. It disciplines. Africa already paid the cost of that illusion. Iran is being positioned to pay it again.